hip hop, hip hop, hip hop, hip
Bars is back.
hip hop,
Sam
hip
and
hop,
oh God,
hop,
what's
hip
up with you?
hop.
I done watched them niggas do interview after interview. They not culture vultures. The culture something they been into. So if you never gave them a view, I recommend you.
Absolutely. Talk about snitch culture. We've heard a lot about that in 2020. Snitch this, snitch that. Talk about that in the gang culture, and what do you think about that?
Man, that's a real man. We could do a whole hour talking about snitching. We literally can do a whole hour on what it means, how do we define it, and the different categories. For example, you have informants. You have confidential informants that flip. You have people who snitch on themselves. You have people who will actually think that they can out-question two detectives. And then you have people that just break down and confess. And then you have people that snitch in trials. Then you have people that just snitch in an interrogation room and never make it to trial. Then you have people that just snitch in a grand jury testimony where guilt or innocence is not decided. I mean, so you have all these different venues where you can tell, or you could just talk to the cop in the alley in the back and give him information. And I'm saying all of this because in my mind, all of this is informing. All of this is telling. All of this is snitching. It doesn't matter if you're pointing someone out in a jury or if you're just meeting a cop in the alley behind the liquor store. So, yeah, I mean, this is a very complex topic. And unfortunately, surprisingly, a lot of street cats don't understand the code. And these are people that's supposed to be more street than me, you know. But it's a topic that I deal with all the time because I consult defense attorneys on cases on a regular basis. And most of the time, I'll tell a client that's trying to, fighting for their life, I would tell the client that we wouldn't be in this predicament if you would have just kept your mouth shut when you got arrested. That's all you had to do was keep your mouth shut when you got arrested. But because you thought you could out-question two seasoned detectives that they're trained to do this, you end up telling. And let me give you an example of snitching that may not sound like snitching, okay? So let's say I get arrested and the cop is asking me about Tyrone. Where's Tyrone at, Alex? We need to find Tyrone. I don't know where Tyrone is. I ain't seen Tyrone. I have no idea what he's doing. No, Alex, we saw you with Tyrone the other day. We got pictures with you and Tyrone. Where's he at? I don't know, but his girlfriend's name is Sarah. Boom. I say his girlfriend's name is Sarah. It seems so innocent. It's not telling about any crime, right? Now they go get Sarah, and they put her in the interrogation room. Sarah, where's Tyrone? Oh, man, F that dude. I don't even talk to Tyrone no more. He's a cheater. Come on, Sarah, you know where he's at. We got him in your phone. Well, he's probably at his baby mama house. You know, what's the baby mama name? Her name is Teresa. Okay, now they go to Teresa. They pull her in. Teresa, where's Tyrone? Tyrone, I don't know, but he left a box of guns in the back of my house and he dug them. They go there, they find the guns, they link those guns to the murders, and then they eventually get Tyrone. But how did they initially find Tyrone? It was through me innocently saying Sarah. That's why you keep your mouth shut. It doesn't matter how innocent you think that information is, it's always going to be used to the benefit of law enforcement. So did I snitch on Tyrone? Most people will say, nah, you didn't snitch on Tyrone. You just said he had a girl named Sarah. But that information led to finding guns, weapons, and all the stuff that they're going to use against them and send them away to prison forever.
Give me the difference between an informant, a snitch, and a rat, because it seems like there's different levels to this shit in 2020. I don't know if there is, according to street, when neither one of us are street, or involved in street life. But is there a difference between informant and rat?
Well, they all kind of overlap each other. But an informant is someone that decides that they want to cooperate with the police and may not necessarily be under investigation. They may not have to do it, but they do it and they get paid to do it. So, for example, I'll give you a perfect example of informants here in Los Angeles. And the LAPD uses these informants, and these informants are from the streets. So we have a thing here in LA called it'll come to me in a second. But let's say someone gets arrested. They get arrested for a murder, and they have about 72 hours before they have to arraign you and send you to the LA County Jail. In those 72 hours, they have you in a precinct. And what they do is they bring another person that you think is a prisoner. You actually think he's a prisoner, but he's not a prisoner. He looks like a prisoner. He's got paperwork like a prisoner. He's got a bracelet on like a prisoner. But he is what we would call an informant. He is going in that cell to spend the next 72 hours with you to extract any information he can about your case. And the LAPD are so slick about it because let's say, for example, the guy that was arrested is a blood. What they do is they have a list of these informants. They find their best blood informant, someone that could talk that blood talk, and they put him in there. And he's equipped with a camera that's on his like clothing somewhere that you can't see, and he's got a mic. So all of this is recorded. And what that guy does is he talks to the youngster in the cell and says, "Hey, what you in here for?" And he asks him, "What set are you from? What gang you from?" And usually this informant is intimidating. Like you really believe this dude is from the streets, and he's trying to get as much information. And unfortunately, the youngster ends up sharing everything that happened. Who got shot? Who had the gun? Where did the gun get taken? Everything. And it's all recorded. It's all documented. That dude that does that is a confidential informant. And he gets paid to do that anywhere from $500 to $5,000. They get paid, and these guys are from the streets.
Wow, damn, man.
Now, if he comes to court and testifies, that takes him to another level. Sometimes that person doesn't have to come to court because the evidence is so overwhelming on that guy. He ends up taking a plea deal. He ends up taking like whatever years that they're offering, because if he goes to court and loses, he's going to get all day. Yeah. So that confidential informant doesn't even have to worry about showing up in court.
One more question I got. Back during your Gangster Chronicles, Reggie Wright used to talk about Snoop being a snitch. Is Snoop a snitch in your opinion? Would that fall under snitch category?
Unfortunately, I'm a big fan of Snoop. I respect his career, but he did run to the police with Daz, and he did tell them some things that were criminal matters. I mean, that's, my dad taught me early on that's telling. That's telling. Yeah. And unfortunately, that would fall into the category of snitching. Now, of course, people that will come to his defense will say, well, he didn't go to court. He didn't tell on anyone in a trial. But, there's, like we said earlier, there's different levels to this. There's different levels. And, I'm teaching my kids the same thing. That when they get into an argument and they're fighting over something, I don't want them to run to me to tell me about what the other guy did to them. Right. I want them to figure it out diplomatically, because you guys are becoming little snitches right now. And you guys can figure out a way how to share the computer or share that laptop or agree on watching a show. And, that's the way I was taught, ever since playing in a sandbox, I was told that tattletaling was wrong. You don't tattletale, and we could look at this as different levels, because as a 5-year-old kid, you're a tattletale. Mm-hmm. As a street cat, you become a snitch and an informant. Mm-hmm. But then even on higher levels of corporate America, you have what's called whistleblowers. Yep. Mm-hmm. Like Snowden. If you're familiar with Snowden, Snowden exposed the whole government's monitoring of our personal lives. And to a certain level, Snowden is telling, And all Snowden did was tell us what we already knew. And look at Snowden now. He can't even come to America. He's been banished into another country. And if he had a family and had kids, look at the damage he would have done. Now, I think the information that Snowden put out there is really important, no doubt about it. But look what telling done got you. You're stuck in another country.
Yeah.
The minute you step foot in the United States, you're going to prison. And you didn't tell us anything that we didn't already know. You could have just came to me, America. I could tell you all about surveillance without, exposing government security issues.
Right. I don't know now. You had to see T.I. T.I. has been answering this question, no paperwork, but the Crime Stoppers video haunts T.I. to this day. Is that considered snitch in your opinion?
The crime, you're talking about the Crime Stoppers video just in and of itself?
Yes.
I think I look at that as a PSA that he did. It's not necessarily linked to any person or anybody. I might have to look at it again, but I will say that when T.I. testified in that court trial, he told too much information. And in the way I grew up, that's snitching. So I would say what he said in that court is definitely snitching. Whenever you answer a question like what kind of gun that they had or how many shots were fired, you might think to yourself, oh, he just said that how many shots were fired. They already knew. But at that time, you don't know what they know. You don't know if you saying that they shot 7 times is going to help them link some other information together. So, yeah, he told in that trial. No doubt about it.
Did you get a chance to see MC8 situation where people was coming out calling him a rat? And then everybody, they kind of defended him as well, saying he didn't. But it was a situation, like you said, it may not have been like in the trial, but a piece of information that you gave to law enforcement helped in their investigation.
Hey, all of that comes under the umbrella of telling. I think that he answered questions in a grand jury where the defendants are not present. And in grand juries, innocent or guilt is not being determined. So you might feel like this is not really telling. But if you're in a grand jury situation and the prosecutor is asking you questions and you're answering those questions, you're telling. I mean, there's no way around it, Like I just recently interviewed a Mexican cartel hitman, and I posted a couple of those videos on my Street TV channel. But then I also took more of that and put it into my podcast, the Street TV podcast. And I asked the dude a question about him. Eventually, he admitted to committing 8 murders as a hitman for the Arellano Felix cartel. And in the interview, I asked him about becoming a snitch. And I actually used the word informant. I said, you became an informant. And then he said, Alex, I just want to correct you. I was never an informant, but I was a cooperating witness. Okay, so that's another one that you could put on your list. Cooperating witness. So you got rat, snitch, informants, confidential informants, cooperating witnesses. It all falls under the same umbrella, man.
All same box.
I appreciate you keeping it real because a lot of people, come with a lot of different ways to get out of that. I just appreciate you keeping it real. You know what I mean? For that, definitely.
Well, a lot of people are not sticking to the code anymore. And a lot of people said that there is no more code. There is no code. But there's definitely a code for yourself. If you can save anybody, you can save yourself. And if you ever get caught in a situation where you're in an interrogation room, keep your mouth shut. That's the only way you're going to win. There's no way of even answering the most innocent of questions. It's going to come back to haunt you. Any little thing that you say is going to come back and it's not going to help you. So yeah, you got to, if you don't believe in the street code anymore, at least you can save yourself.
Absolutely. Mr. Alonso, we definitely appreciate your time. Over an hour on the podcast,
yes.
Hip Hop Uncensored Podcast, powerful interview. If you don't mind, real quick, drop your social media handles. And before we conclude this interview, or after we conclude this interview, stick it around because we got some things to talk about off camera, Filmer.
Okay. Well, yeah, you can find me on streetgangs.com, streettv.net, and on all social media platforms at Alex Alonso 101. That's Alex Alonso, spelled with an S, 101. And thanks for having me.
Hey, man, pleasure's all ours, definitely. On the Hip Hop Uncensored podcast this afternoon, Alex Alonso in the building. Salute, brother.